Blindspot Season 2, Episode 8, We Fight Deaths on Lone Thick Waters, I believe. Or on Thick Lone Waters. I knew I was going to mess that up. I'm like, this title is so long, I'm going to have to read it. But I like this episode. First off, obviously I'm a week behind on this one. I don't know what the deal was. This episode, first it was pushed back a week. It was sports. It was some sports. I think it was baseball or something else happened. So the episode got pushed back a week. I was super excited to see it. And then Law & Order came on and I was mad. And then, for whatever reason, last week, it just didn't record. And maybe because it wasn't supposed to be on or something happened. I don't know. But for whatever reason, the DVR didn't record, even though I saw everything else I watched. Because it's like I have like 3 shows that come on Wednesdays, and my CW shows got recorded. But for whatever reason, Blindspot didn't. So I was like, oh, it just must have stayed off for 2 weeks. Something extra must have happened. That's what I figured. So then I got a message and it was like, oh no, didn't do the review. It did actually come on. But like this episode, the first thing I want to start off with is Clive, because he was hilarious. His the story that he was telling, which was more like a fantasy epic type fairy tale he was telling about himself. I loved that. I thought that was hilarious. I think as much as I love Rich.com, Clive telling his side of the story is the funniest thing I've seen in this show, as far as I'm concerned at least. Like, he was just telling this insanely silly story where, you know, Jane and Weller couldn't fight. They're trained FBI agents, specifically Weller, and obviously Jane has more than enough training with everything that she's been through. And just everything he did was so funny to me. Like, it starts off simple because we have the character Lynn. She's telling her side of the story where she's like, you know, I was the last one there and stuff. And then it goes to Clive, and with his portion of the story, it starts with them after they change outfits and stuff. So I was like, okay, it makes sense that Jane would be like in this dress, which this is for like gamers and stuff. She was dressed like Ada Wong to me when I was watching this episode. And it was like, alright, that makes sense. You know, 4 of the 5 people are dressed like waiters, so they can kind of go in the background and stuff. And then she'd be dressed like a normal person who could just walk around without being stopped. I thought that's how it was going to play out. And then it switched back, and I was like, Jane's dressed like everybody else. And then it switched to his story with the gun thing. And I was like, oh, now I understand why she's dressed differently. It's because he had the hots for her. And he was making this, you know, the story seem like she was coming on to him and stuff like that. So I loved his side of the story. Everything about it was just absolutely hilarious. My favorite part was definitely the little fight scene when he's just flipping. Like, they're both stuck, and they're like, you know, like, Clive, help us. And he's flipping and kicking and just beating these guys up. And then my favorite part out of that whole thing is after he beats the guys up, it's like a medium shot, and Weller's like in the corner. He had a different expression when they did the close up. But when it was a medium shot, he was like slumped over like that in the corner, and it just made me laugh so much. And I was like, this is absolutely hilarious. And then when they're inside the vault and stuff, and Weller's like, I can't make a fist after that fight. I was like, this is absolutely insane. But I love that. Even the way it ended was amazing, where he's like, you know, I told them to take off, and then he basically switched from a handgun to like, I can't even think of the name of that gun, but it was like the gun from Rambo, basically. And he's just pulled this giant gun out, like, from out of nowhere, and I was like, this is so ridiculous. But I loved his side of the story. I thought it was hilarious. And then the rest of the story was really good too. The actual serious stuff, the mission itself, I thought was pretty interesting. As usual, like they've been doing for a while now, instead of it being the twist where the person that they think is bad is actually good, this was just a twist where the mission itself was totally different than what they expected. The part about that Clive was telling them where they were kind of faked out and they were the distraction, that ends up being true. But we find out that Lynn was involved the entire time. She was trying to act like she was, you know, not as guilty as before. But I thought it was cool the way they did it. It's like, you know, they keep finding out little pieces here and there. It's like, why didn't you tell us it was a person? And she's like, well, I was trying to protect myself from all the other crap, adding on to that, you know, kidnapping charges. And then it's like, actually, she's still lying about that. And the reason she didn't say anything is because she, you know, having worked with the man who we find out is actually like the big person, Maroney, she'd worked with him before, so she was still going to get paid no matter what, and she was trying to make that happen, even if she'd been arrested. It's like, well, extra $2 million, I guess that works out fine for me, or at least as best as it possibly can, and then, you know, they don't know exactly how involved I am. So, I like the way it all played out, and of course we have, you know, Jane and Waller, they kind of go off on the mission, then they get split up, and Jane gets rescued, and that's how we get the truth from the rest of the story. And Weller gets put up on auction with this woman who's able to make a tsunami bomb, which was an amazing little bit of information. I'd never heard of that before, unless they totally made up that World War II part. I'd never heard that before in my life. I was like, that's very interesting to make a tsunami bomb. Makes a lot of sense. That would be an insanely dangerous weapon if it could actually be done. It would. There's so much science involved in that. It would be insane to actually make that happen. But that's like a scary idea. Like someone could just make a tsunami bomb. But I thought that was cool. I was like, all right, that makes sense why this woman would be, such a prized possession. Why they would go through the process of kidnapping this woman, and then they do black market auction. And so the team has to go in. They do the whole rescue plan. Of course, Weller is like half escaping on his own anyway. So they go through. Everybody meets up. Of course, naturally everything works out. But then there's other little stuff in this episode as well, and we have Reed and Zapata, they're kind of trying to figure out what the heck are we going to do with this knife. And I like the way that played out, and I'm still a little scared about it. I don't know if it's going to work out perfectly. They get the knife back. They basically frame this one dude. It's like, all right, well, self-preservation, let's do this. Honestly, all I was thinking about this whole episode, every time they were like, well, we can do this and leave it here and do this and that, I'm like, their cameras exist. So I don't know if Zapata was caught on camera. I'm almost 100% sure Reed was caught on camera because he handed his buddy the ticket, like, you can never come back. Which also, I thought he gave him a plane ticket at first, but I guess that would be a little bit more difficult to do. Like, you have to go through some more specific processes if you get on a plane. But, he's there and he hands him the thing and then he's standing. I'm like, bus terminals have cameras too. I'm just like, there's so many ways that could easily happen. And that might be how they do it, where technically he wasn't guilty, and then it's like, oh, why'd you give him this ticket? And they might still go through the process of saying, like, well, this was missing at one point, and then suddenly it showed up again. So, I don't know, I feel like that could still be tracked back to Zapata, and there's just a million things where I'm like, I don't think it's over. I think they're still going to figure out something, and somehow, even though this is kind of seemingly the perfect solution for them, they got the knife into the car, and seemingly nobody saw Zapata do it, and then Reed was able to get his buddy out of town. It seems fine, but I just don't think it'll work out perfectly. I don't think that's done. I think that storyline, they gave us like the fake ending, like this is where we are, like this is the real ending. So I think something else is going to happen. Of course, in this episode, we have the random dude. I only remember his name because Nas said it at like the end of the episode when she was kind of confronting him about not having real power. But Matthew, whatever his last name is, the guy, I don't like him, so I don't really care what his name is. Him coming after her, I thought was very interesting because it puts her on, it gives her a clock now. Like, she may or may not be in the rest of the season even. I don't know. But that kind of sucks. I like Nas as a character. I think she's been a good addition to the show. I like the actress as well. I think she does a good job. But now it's very interesting where he's like, of course he technically had good reason to be mad because of the crime element of it. And they kind of did some vigilante work to get everything, all said and done. But I don't know. It's hard to tell where they're pushing it. And of course she's worried that he's going to get someone who's like, yeah, she committed a crime for sure. Let's get rid of her. So of course that's why she gives Patterson that cool little silver card. I thought it was a flash drive at first, and then it's just like a cool blank silver card, and I was like, that's actually kind of sweet. So of course she's freaked out for good reason, because like he said, I'm gonna run it up the chain until I find someone who has the power to fire you. So she's worried now, and we don't really know how that's gonna play out. And we have the nice little, like, the one truly happy moment in the whole episode when everyone's at the party. They had a cool moment with Weller and Jane where he does actually invite her, and he's like, just basically, despite how crazy things are, you're my friend. And he even says, I never thought I'd say this, but if something happened to you, I'd miss you. So I thought that was actually a great line, with him adding the part, like, I truly never thought I'd even say this again because of all the insanity that they've gone through. So I actually thought that was great. That was like a really small thing, but it's like, that says a lot when it's like, based on everything we've seen, of course, with this show, that does say a lot, where he even admits, like, I didn't think I'd say this myself, but I still care about you and I want you to be a part of, everything we have. So I thought that was cool. We find out that Willer's having a daughter. That was the whole point of the cake. So that was kind of cool. That cake looked great too. I was like, that just looks like a strawberry cake, and I love strawberry cakes. But it was nice. It was a nice little scene. Everybody was together. We actually got to see, I swear to God, I can never remember this dude's name, but we saw the psychiatrist guy. He was in there during the party scene. And everything's nice. Everybody's, playing around and stuff. And they have the little moment with Weller and Nas where she was worried about him possibly dying. And I was surprised by this when he actually kissed her, because I thought they were like having like a crazy argument because of the whole spying thing. I was like, oh, I guess he's over that, because I felt like they didn't really talk too much about it. And at the same time, after 2 weeks, maybe I'm just forgetting everything. But, it goes through, they do the party element, and everybody leaves, and so we get Jane. And, it gets to the end, and this was a part I definitely forgot. So she's about to close the door, and of course, her brother shows up. And he shows up, he's got the crazy look, and then they show the note, and I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot that happened at the end of that last episode. So now he's like, phase 2 is about to start, and he's freaking out. Of course he doesn't say like, I know the truth, but he's like, he's giving her final chance. Like, this is it for him. He's like, alright, it's my sister. She doesn't really remember me, but man, she's still my sister. I don't want to have to kill her, because then he'll just be like a super villain. He'll just be killing everybody on the planet. So I don't know what to expect with this next episode. I'm excited to check it out. I'll probably end up watching it tonight, since it came out and I'm a week behind. But I am excited to see where things are headed, because we're going into phase 2. I don't know what he's going to be doing. I mean, he's watching it like a hawk, of course, because of, the letter. So I'm not really sure what to expect. Of course, she's going to have to find a way to relay all this information back to the rest of the team. So I really don't know what to expect for this next episode, but, excuse me, I am very excited for it. Like I said, I actually really enjoyed this episode. This was actually a really good episode to come back on, even though I guess technically it wasn't meant to be a break. But after the 1 week break, or 2 weeks for me, this is actually a great episode, I feel, to come back on. But of course, definitely want to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And despite the fact that the next episode is already out, I want to know how you guys think things are going to play out with Jane being in such a unique position. She doesn't know that her brother knows the truth. She has to get all this extra information. She has to also, like, pseudo-help Sandstorm. So I want to know how you guys think that her being in such a oddly unique situation is actually going to play out for this next episode. Personally speaking, I'm sure it'll work out. I think there's the possibility, considering they're actually doing the second phase, there is the possibility that she's outed 100% to the rest of Sandstorm. But it's like, I don't know. It's really hard to tell, because I would assume we're only like halfway through, not even, halfway through the season. So it's actually kind of hard to tell, what to really expect, like how far things are going to go. Because if she's outed, then it's just, I would think it's almost like mass chaos. Like, they're doing phase 2, she's 100% outed, she has to get back to the FBI. Then it's just all hands on deck, everybody's fighting everybody. So it's really hard to say, but she does have to stop them from completing phase 2, because I can't think of his name. I'm drawing a blank. All I can think of is the actual actor's name. But he's like, basically, we're going to change the world. So it's going to be chaotic either way. But like I said, I want to know your predictions. And of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know. And thanks for watching.